Jeremiah 7. I read this yesterday, but I forgot to record it. And what happened is that God pretty much is telling Jeremiah to stand at the gate of the Lord's house and proclaim all these words. That all of them, God says to amend their ways and their deed, and God will let them live. Do not just trust in the deceptive word saying this is the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, and just rely on it that because this is a temple of the Lord that there will not be any punishment that comes, because God said that if they truly do not amend their ways or their deeds, what is and truly practice justice between a person and their neighbor, like don't oppress the stranger, the orphan, the widow, don't shed innocent blood, or don't follow other gods. If they don't do those things, then he will let them live. Otherwise, if they continue to trust in the deceptive words, if they continue to steal, murder, commit adultery, swear falsely, offer sacrifice to Baal, then come into God's house and say we are saved, that is not gonna be something that God will tolerate. And it says right here that God spoke to them again and again, but they did not listen. He called them, but they did not answer, and he will then hurl them out of his sight, all the descendants, like their brothers Ephraim. So then God, I guess, as for you, that means when I read it, I understand as God talking to Jeremiah. He is actually telling Jeremiah, don't pray for this people anymore. Don't lift a cry or a prayer for them, and don't plead with God for them. The woman, they like the family, they make sacrifice of cakes to the Queen of Heaven, pretty much an idol, a false god, and then they are doing it to provoke God to anger, and this is to their own shame, and God's anger and wrath will be poured out on them. And then this is what
Who's this guy?
and your burnt
Don't touch.
this is what the Lord of army add to your burnt offering, for I did not speak to your father. So when God took them out, he did not ask them to sacrifice or anything like that. He only commanded them to obey God's voice and walk entirely in the way that he command you. But they did not obey or incline their ear, but walk in their own advice, and they went backward and not forward. So then they did more evils than the fathers. So then God will not answer them anymore, and God said that this nation did not obey the voice of the Lord their God or accept discipline. Trustworthiness has perished and eliminated from their mouth, for the son of Judah have done what is evil in God's sight. They even killed their own son and daughters, and God even said he did not command it, and it did not even come into his mind. And that shows us that God is holy and righteous. He does not even have the mind to think that they would do all these evil. But it kind of is interesting, because God says that he knows everything even before it happened, but yet he says this. So it's interesting to me. I don't really understand that dynamic, but it's like I mentioned, it's more like, to me, like God's foreknowledge is more like an if-else condition. If this happened, he knows the ending. If that happens, then he knows the ending. But I don't understand it when he said it did not come to his mind. So that is something of a mystery that I guess only when we see God will understand. But we do know that what he said is his will. It will come to pass in the very end. And so a day is coming when they will they use that topeth to do this evil act and in their idolatrous worship. But God said that will be where people are going to be buried, and there will be like no other place to be buried. It's going to be a site of ruins. So this is like a very harsh word from God, but he did say he kept on sending prophet, he kept on sending his word, he talked over and over and over again, but no one listened, and they actually did more wicked than their fathers. So this is what happens to a rebellious generation.